DRC meeting. The DRC is a subcommittee of the Historic Zoning Commission. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a Certificate of Appropriateness, or COA, for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the Historic District Design Guidelines. Applicant participation in DRC meetings is voluntary but highly recommended. Changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on the discussions with the DRC are the applicant's choice, but DRC makes no representation as to whether any changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, the Historic Zoning Commission. And we have two items on this afternoon's agenda. When the item is called, please introduce yourself and generally describe your item in about 2 to 3 minutes. And our item number 1 is discussion of an addition, the principal structure at 114 Lewisburg Avenue, and Megan Glenn is the applicant. And Kim, did you want to Emily, do you want to give your report first?
We'll let Megan.
Okay,
go
Megan.
first. And you can stand up here at the podium, or you can sit at that table, whichever is most comfortable for you.
This is supposed to be informal.
Do you
would-
want me to sit at the table then?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Just know that we can talk back and forth,
Okay.
not like at a formal meeting.
Okay, thank you. Megan Glenn Architecture. I came back in July and first showed y'all the first round of like trying to get the roof figured out. So again, the original house was built in the 1860s and it was added on in the 1930s. So everything you see, almost everything you see existing is historic. There's one little stoop that's on the back side of the kitchen that that's not original, but everything else that you see on the house should be. Yeah, that's a good drawing to look at right there. So you can see the portions of the house that were built in 1866, and then anything that was affected by the 1936-37 addition renovation. We're proposing to add on a family room and a screen porch off the back side of the house. And then kind of transitioning into the yard, having like an elevated patio area with some stairs that kind of cascade out into the yard. The last time I came out here, we were talking about having a breezeway that connected to the garage, and we are not going down that road now. The owner felt like the addition was coming out far enough that she felt fine with how close it got to the garage. And she does park in that garage, and there's like some additional like living space in there as well. And that was built back in 2006, I think. So from the last time we met, I was kind of going back and forth on a couple of different roof conditions. And the first thing I was kind of looking at was how y'all felt with the roof overall. And a lot of what I wanted to talk about today had to do with some specific parts and pieces, and also exterior materials in general for the project. So yeah, there's a good shot of the roof. Well, there it goes. Revit just takes a second. So yeah, we still have the roof slightly lower than that left gable on the back side of the house. And you can see that a little bit more, I think, on the following page where there's an elevation. So you can actually see like a height and some dimension to it as well. It does not pop over the front roof of the house, so you would not be able to see it from the front. We're showing the gable where that's the screen porch kind of coming out in the family room. And then between the existing gable and the new gable, we've got a low sloped roof that we are currently calling out as a standing seam metal roof. We also have a door that I wanted to talk about, which was that back door right between those two gables that you were just looking at. And we're wanting to get a doggy door into that door. You wouldn't be able to see it from the street because it's on the back of the house and it's kind of tucked away. But that was something that the owner really would love for just efficiency of how she's using her space. I also wanted to tell y'all something that I found, and I've got some historic pictures to show you, but this was when the house was being added onto and renovated in 1937. If you go, that one right there with the baby. Isn't that cute? That porch, that's the front porch of the house that is now like a wood, like ornate kind of construction, and it was metal like the original drawings had shown it. So at some point that got redone, and I don't know when. I went through as much documentation as I had in front of me, and I didn't know when that happened. Aren't those sweet? So I just wanted to let y'all know, originally I was like, oh yeah, that front porch, the wood construction there was original. But then as I went through documentation, just wanted to let you know that was not the case. I don't know when it was done. Do you want me to, I had written out a list of the questions that I had in here. Do you want me to go through things? How do you want me to do this?
I think
Is that okay?
that's okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, the first thing was like how if y'all felt better about what I was showing scale wise and showing the roof, how it's laid out now, in like response to the last meeting.
What we could do is you're asking about the roof. Do you want to give your comments on the roof and then go to the next item
Sure.
and let Megan
So
just take them
we
by
have
pieces?
Okay.
that the additions, location, placement, form, height, size, and material all align with the guidelines. That it is subordinate and the guidelines, you know, that's what they would recommend.
Okay.
Do you all have any feedback on
I can
the roof element?
yeah, I can respond a little bit to some of the questions too. I feel like the adjustments to the back help a lot of things. I think there was some struggle with all the pieces of roof originally. I think this makes more sense, and even though it's, you know, when you look at the roof plan, you go, oh, that's a little complicated. It makes sense. There's kind of two arms, and there's just a connector between, and I don't know that anybody ever can see that connector ever. So I think from that standpoint, that I think before there was the breezeway, and then there was sort of this wraparound roof that the porch had. I think this is a much more simple and straightforward, in that it's just got the two gables. I think making the screen porch subservient by just that little drop in eave helped. So I feel good about the scale. The Revit model view from above is a little misleading. That is what it will look like, but we don't fly to work, most of
No.
us.
Yeah.
So
there
I feel
are
okay
some
about it.
views that are from standing on
Yeah,
the
those
ground
look
as well.
those look fine. I mean, I feel okay about that. You had mentioned also something about stone foundation walls. You're saying that the stone will be tucked behind the siding.
Yeah.
There'd just be a skirt board and it sits behind, not a water table.
That's what I was asking in there. So is the goal to replicate, try and make that detail look the same as the historic.
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but typically, and I know a lot of other jurisdictions require the foundations to be different.
Yeah.
Just so that it's, it's kind of that reversibility that the Department of Interior talks about. So, I don't think it's wrong to do the stone with the siding and skirt board similarly. It's a different kind of framing detail, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to discourage that. But if it were some other version of that, I think that's fine too. I don't know that any of this is really all that visible from the street, so I don't know that it matters. I think
Okay.
using high quality materials and details that are nice, I would encourage that.
Okay.
But I don't think it has to match,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, when I was going through the guidelines, I would just had a lot of questions on how close things should match and how, what shouldn't match, like the trim, and the soffit details, like trying to have that match. And then do you all, because it's I think of it like as a smaller addition, and I almost want to just make it look as much like the house as I possibly can. Like trying to have the exact same type of materials. Like I was originally thinking it's going to be the wood siding and trying to have the same, reveal, sorry. And having the same trim, having the same trim color, and then having even the same window color. And then when I kind of got to that point, I was like, okay, the window color is going to have to be a custom color if we do that. And so then I was kind of going down a road of like, well, how close are we trying to match everything? Or is it okay for a few things to be a more standard color that's still cohesive with the original house?
Sure.
Like, for instance, I was looking at the Pella Reserve because they have the profiles that are more historic. Could the windows be a more standard color versus trying to match the green that's on the existing windows and the existing trim?
Sure.
And I just wasn't sure what level y'all would be comfortable with.
So, from what you're saying, the windows are going to be metal?
Well, I'm looking at the Pella Reserve Traditional, which has a nicer profile that's in line with these existing windows. It has an aluminum clad wrap on the exterior. It is a
Okay.
wood construction and a wood interior.
Okay.
And then it would be simulated dividers with spacer bars.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had discussions about that. We've approved some aluminum clad windows. You're keeping all the whole front? Say if I'm walking down the street, all those windows are staying the
Yeah,
same?
we're not doing anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I know the guidelines recommend wood or composite. I've never seen a window made out of like Trex material, so I always read composite as multiple materials. But we usually try and steer people towards all wood, and it's partly because of those issues you're talking about. It's like, well, it has to be painted, so at this point, it's not custom paint because it's just wood.
Yeah.
But when we get into the aluminum clad products, we are kind of beholden to the catalog of colors.
Right.
Or you can pay 20% more and get something custom. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but if the back windows, they're already going to look a little different just by the nature of their new. The glass will be new, and it just looks different. And so I don't think they have to match in color necessarily, but we don't really review color unless it's inherent to the material, which in an aluminum clad window, that's inherent to the material, I would guess.
Right.
So at that point, we would review the color. But that house has several colors on it. So if it was something that just went with that, that's fine. If you want to get the custom color, if you want to match the windows color-wise and get wood windows and paint them, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, the guidelines are interesting, even from the Department of Interior, because they want it to be very set apart, but at the same time, no homeowner wants their house addition to look like it's just some foreign object. So it's kind of
Right.
blending the two. I don't think it all has to match.
Okay.
I don't think it has to be totally different either. I think just an addition that's not like to match the reveal, I'd say go for it. I think it'll make it look cohesive. But I don't think you have to copy every detail.
Okay.
If it, and most people don't want to because some of the details can be quite expensive
Right.
or whatever.
Is the would you all expect to see the wood siding on this, or is hardy board ever used? I don't like the corner condition. Like, we've got mitered corners on this house, like with the wood. So I'm assuming that this needs to be wood to match that detail, because I think that detail is pretty important. It's important in my eyes, versus having a corner board on the back side of the house. Is that something that y'all are concerned with at all? Or is it a bigger deal in my head?
Do you want to, Kathy, or do you all have any?
Let me ask this other question as well, too.
Yeah.
So this is the new siding that you're going to be adding
Correct,
to the
yeah.
addition? And what were your options?
I was just looking at the wood siding and having mitered corners, or if we needed to value engineer anything like that. That's what I'm kind of trying to figure out. Like, we're in pricing right now, and so like what has a little bit of give, and what am I assuming that's okay and not okay. I don't really want to put hardy board at all on this house, and I had never been planning on it, but that's going to be a question that comes up to me from whoever we're working with too. So I was assuming no.
I think typically we would like to see what matched to existing, which would be the wood. But again, this is the back of the house.
Yes,
No
I know.
one sees it.
Yeah,
As long as you didn't say vinyl clad. I'm happy
Yeah.
about that.
yeah. But I think the lowest I personally would go would be hardy board, but you know, I feel like trying to keep the wood in this project as long as possible. That would be my goal. We also have the roof is going to be an asphalt shingle to match the existing, but then we've got that standing seam metal roof. And a question that will come up is, can that metal roof go to membrane? I didn't see membrane listed in the appropriate roof materials. Is that ever something that's approved or disapproved of?
It's all over downtown buildings.
Okay. I don't know.
All the ones on Main.
Well, what about houses?
And a residential,
Yeah, I think it,
Flat
to
roof.
me, it comes down to, what can be seen.
And you
Like I
can't
said,
really see it.
I don't even think neighbors behind you will be able to see it because it's such a shallow pitch. So to me, it's not a material we see a lot on residential, but we do see it.
Okay.
There are people who have membranes on roofs on old houses in certain spots. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the houses on Lewisburg Pike have some membrane roofs over some of these flat porches and things that
Yeah.
exist on some of the houses.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that at all, but I don't think the guidelines mention it specifically.
They don't. They just a call for like compatibility and if it can be seen or not. It does recommend, if it is being replaced, to match what was there historically. But obviously, this wasn't there historically. so-
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
in my mind, if you're making decisions, I would say that using the hardy plank on the smooth side with the same reveal, and if that gets you the budget to do the standing seam for the overall look of the house, but you can't see it. So,
Okay.
but I would probably say for just how the house looks as a whole and reads as a whole, I would like to not see the membrane.
Okay.
I will comment that the design guidelines do recommend utilizing wood siding and matching that reveal of additions and everything. So the guidelines would support wood over a cement siding.
Okay. Okay.
But we have approved that on the rears of houses.
I believe so.
I believe so too.
Okay.
So back to the membrane, is that
Yeah.
in replace of the standing seam?
Yeah.
yeah.
Just that spot.
Okay, and membrane because it's a much better seal,
And no,
getting it
it'll.
installed, or just numbers?
Yeah. I just know it's going to come up. I've drawn it how I would like to see it, but I know there are things that I'm going to get asked.
I just think that part of the roof is really not going to be seen.
Yeah.
Right. No, I
Unless you're on
agree.
the roof.
Yeah.
I don't know that. When you get out in the yard, do you see it? Because that's a deep yard.
Actually, if you can you scoot out to that view that was like that I did in the backyard, the page before? Yeah, you're probably. It really just takes a minute, doesn't it? All the Revit lines. Yeah, see, you really can't see it.
You can't see it, okay.
And that's not even a minimum slope too. Like that's so it's working. It
Okay.
can work well. Okay. Do you want me to go to next question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's a window that was in the existing dining room, or is in the existing dining room. And the last that we had talked, I needed to show you. Actually, you were on the page that it was on. Sorry. It was below those 3D models. Yeah, right there. It's not something that's original. It's like kind of plasticky, and it's just butted right up to the trim. So we were going to take that out and just put a window that looked more in line with the rest of the windows.
The guidelines would support that because it's a non-historic window.
Does anyone have a problem with that? I don't think.
Nope.
Okay.
We would want the staff to see the window, the details of it.
Oh, like see it in person?
No.
No.
If you just bring a photo
Oh.
of what you're planning on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The new window.
And it is at the back of the house facing the side yard. And then originally I was telling you all that where the existing kitchen was, we were going to replace one of the historic doors and put a doggy door there, and that is not what we were doing now. We are now in the addition trying to put a new door that is the doggy door, so it's not replacing anything that was super cute there before. And it's just right in the middle of the back, and it's kind of blocked from the neighbors. Not the back neighbor, but the side neighbors.
So, the design guidelines do recommend that one should design doors and doorways to an addition to read as secondary in appearance and detailing to the historic building, to utilize traditional materials with appearances similar to the doors on the historic building. And the proposed doggy door, let's see, wrong page, sorry. This one, okay. Doesn't exactly align with the guidelines, as the top portion of the glass is a solid pane of glass, and there doesn't appear to be a window configuration like that on this house. All of the window configurations typically utilize a mutton pattern.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, they should be able to put simulated dividers on that product. It's a fiberglass product. It would be painted to match the trim. It's got like a little profile around the glass. But yeah, we could update that. I think that was all of my questions. That's all I'm seeing right now.
Okay.
Did y'all have any
Do you all have any?
other
I
comments?
just wanted to bring up one thing. I'm glad you brought these original drawings for the 36 renovation.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that center doorway, it says, part of it says remove tower. So it originally had a tower. It was an Italianate
Yeah.
house with an Italianate.
It had a cupola too
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
there that it doesn't
That would
have
be
now.
cool to think about.
I know. Oh
It
my
would really
god.
bring the house back to its original feel in the front.
I know. I'll work on that. See what I can do. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
I
real-
think I believe there's a picture that exists.
Oh, really?
You might ask Rick Warwick at the Heritage Foundation, but I think I've seen it. And it may be from a distance. It may not be where it shows the detail, if I remember, but
It'd be
That's
cool to see.
okay. I'd like to see it. It was really cool. The owner has a box of just historic documents on this house, and there's even typed notes from during construction when the architect was changing things and how much it cost and like which little things were changing.
wow.
It's really cool.
That's a treasure.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll add all your notes to the box too.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
That'd be-
Hopefully someone thinks they're cool in like 100 years too. Okay. Well,
Thank you
thank
for
you
your
guys.
attention.
Thank
Details.
you. And our item 2, I cannot believe we've got 2 items. This is very unusual. Discussion of new construction at 242 Miles Manor Court. And Mark, do you want to come up and just do it
Yeah, I can run
how
through it.
you feel comfortable? But I think going through items is kind of an easy way to do it.
All right. So the last time we met, the comments we were getting were mostly for the corner, the left side and the rear part of it for the height and changing the structure up a little bit to accommodate kind of 2 fronts. And one of the suggestions was creating 2 gables that face the left corner lot and brought in the house 2 feet, lowered the ridge line a little bit, and brought the house down. One other comment was kind of breaking up the rear part of the house and the front section to kind of create a feeling of old versus new. And so we did a brick on the front and then did the siding with the water table at the rear. And what other comments? I think those were the 2 main comments. We added the height elevations or kind of diagrams for Winslow, or the house behind us on Winslow, and then the houses on Miles Manor to show kind of a height comparison. We moved the fireplace to be centered on the gable instead of offset, give more of a traditional look. And then we took out there's suggestions of kind of peeling back on the detailings, like the brackets and those items, and we took away some of those. One suggestion was the roof return coming across the gable ends. We stopped them and then let the siding carry up on the gable.
Okay. Did you want to give some feedback
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
So this is the third DRC for the applicant, and they have incorporated feedback from the previously attended DRCs and meetings with staff. So the design of the construction continues to progress. The massing of the rear of the building has been reduced, and there are a few major comments from zoning that we would like to address first, as there could be possible, design implications from incorporating and providing information on these comments. So we'll go through those first. A final plat must be recorded to consolidate lots prior to building permit approvals, to contact William Holcomb to confirm accurate addressing, to provide.
Can you say that a little slower.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
So I'll go back through those. A final plat must be recorded to consolidate lots prior to building permit approvals, to contact William Holcomb to confirm accurate addressing, to provide calculations for pervious versus impervious area. This lot is required to maintain a minimum of 40% landscape surface area. Impervious area includes anything under roof, driveway, patios, sidewalks, etc. And staff encourages the applicant to proceed with surveys and the platting process to fully determine lot lines, and approval cannot be given until the actual lot size has been determined. As previously discussed, this is a corner lot that has 2 front setbacks and 2 side setbacks. Provide documentation on how the setbacks were determined. The Winslow Road side appears to be closer than the other homes on the block face. Be advised that there is a 60-foot right-of-way down Winslow, and it is imperative that the correct property lines are shown. This will also be addressed during the consolidation of plat. The minimum front yard setbacks shall be the average setback of existing buildings on the same block base. No new building shall be located closer to the front lot line than the closest adjacent building. So those are from the comments from zoning. And then there are a few items that we would also like to call attention to within the submittal. So the first being the height. As proposed, the height in front of the home facing Miles Manor Court is appropriate, and within that average allowance. However, on the facade fronting Winslow Road, the height of the home is 36 feet and 8 inches. So the average of the block face appears to be about 24 feet 6 inches. And with the 10% height guideline recommendation, the maximum height of the home would be about 27 feet on the rear. The entrance on the front proposes a 3/4 light door, side lights, and a transom, and we would like your feedback on the chosen door style and whether it is compatible with the architectural style of the home and compatible with the adjacent properties. This style door is not common to the historic buildings nearby, and the guidelines recommend doors and doorways blend well with other historic buildings on the street. The window specifications have not been provided at this time, but a 2/1 light pattern is proposed. The guidelines recommend designing windows to relate to the architectural style on the building or those found on nearby historic buildings. This light pattern is only seen on one of the homes on Mayberry Court, which is a newer construction home, and staff would like the commissioner's feedback on the design of the windows. And we'd like to address the pitch of the gables. The Craftsman style typically has a lower pitched roof between 6/12 to 8/12. As proposed, the pitch of the front gable is 10/12 and on the side gables as 12/12. And these pitches may accentuate the verticality of the home. And the guidelines recommend to be compatible with the adjacent historic buildings and with the architectural style. And gutter specifications have not been provided. The building footprint looks to be appropriate at about 31% of the lot coverage. And we'd appreciate any comments or feedback on the topics addressed by staff, either zoning or us by the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, which one of you all would like to provide feedback first?
Let's start with the door style.
All right.
Where's the image of that? As submitted.
It looks like it's page 7 on the Spivey Residence brick option updated, that attachment. On page 7, I have it pulled up here on the screen
that,
for us.
okay. There it is. Okay. Oops. Would you have other options? Since that's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
compatible?
that's, we can change that per your recommendations, or we can match it more stuff, or a different style, or, yeah.
Is it non-compatible because of the overall opening or because of side lights or differentiation of the door?
I think looking at the historic buildings and their entrances along Winslow and Miles Manor, they're mostly no light doors. So just paneled doors. And if there is light, there's very little. And so with the Craftsman style too, I believe the 3/4 light isn't super common. So it's either the little 6 couple panes at the top or no lights as well.
I think if you come up with a couple of options and come back to us, I think that
All right.
would help me make a choice.
So am
Consider
I-
the windows as well.
Am I to try to match the style of the home or common to the streetscape doors? What am I matching here?
I don't know if I would call it a match, but I
Or
would
trying to,
call,
yeah.
you know, obviously to the home is first and foremost, and then of course your streetscape. But how does staff feel about that?
So the guidelines recommend compatibility, but also that if you are matching the architectural style, that is acceptable as well.
All right.
My comment would be on the front facade. I don't think there's any place that has a window box in the whole neighborhood on the front facade, so I would probably just delete that.
All right.
And I would like to hear Tyler's feedback on the returns, Tyler, on the front trim at the roof.
Yeah, I've seen them done this way, and then another way you see them is the return is sort of hipped,
Yep.
which is I don't know that I've got a big strong preference there. The hip might soften it a little more. Yeah, and then I think looking at some of the trim details too, this may be getting into further detail because there's, I think planning has some issues that have to be overcome, and we do too, height-wise. But I think a house specifically of this style and to blend in a historic neighborhood, the windows probably need a proper sill and apron instead of just being shown as picture framed.
All right.
I think it's got some type of cap on top, but there's nothing under the window like an exterior sill and apron. It
think
just
there's
looks like
a sloping Rolox still on the brick.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the brick, fine. I'm talking about the
Oh, sorry.
siding. The siding areas
Okay.
are just shown as sort of picture framed,
All right.
which
Yeah. Have a drip cap on that.
typically is
Oh, yeah.
not.
Yeah.
We don't see that ever in a historic
Yeah, I
neighborhood.
think
It's got a sill and apron, so you're just one little board
Yep.
sill short of making that work. But it having a cap on top is indicative of that kind of craftsman style. The mutton patterns. I can find all kinds of examples of all kinds of things, old and not.
And that's one we'll just lean on your recommendation. And
Yeah.
It's not a.
I mean, a lot of old houses have a lot of muttons on the front or on the sides because, it came on a wagon in glass. Big pieces of glass didn't make it. So see lots of old houses that the front are actually big panes of glass.
Yeah.
We can drive all around town here and see big pieces of glass, and then you get to the sides, and now it's all of a sudden divided light because it would survive the boat and then the horse drawn. It's the whole thing. This particular era, we would probably see some mutton patterns of some sort, but and we also see a mixture of casements and double hungs, which I think you've got a little bit of that going on. I can't kind of see behind the wall and all of it, but I think you might be headed the right direction. That big 2/1 is sort of a modern construct. Oftentimes it might be 6/1 or 4/1, or 4/4, 6/6, something like that. But that this 2/1 thing is sort of a people trying to get big chunks of glass and it looking really thin, and they're trying to mimic steel in some ways. But I think for this, thinking through that a little more is probably better. I think what you've done with the breaks, I mean, there's a perspective in here that looks down the Winslow side, and where you've broken that back gable off, and it actually has some real 2-foot relief.
Yep.
I think that was helpful. It's successful in breaking it into pieces where it feels like there's a house there's a hyphen, there's another piece of house. Still have some concerns about the height, but I'm also sympathetic because, you know, the back of the lot is, what is it, 7 feet shorter?
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that's not entirely your fault. You know, what would we do? And I keep thinking, okay, if there wasn't a basement, then the whole house could drop, right? But that's a lot to ask somebody to give up when I think the city's going to make you have some pretty tough setbacks to deal with. If they count them as both front setbacks, it's like, okay, well, now there's a limited building footprint kind of area. And we're telling them to keep the height down. So I'm sympathetic to that.
I am to a point.
Yeah.
But you're, what did they say, 10 feet?
It's yeah, on that Winslow
Over-
side.
Is that right?
About 9 to 10, yeah. 9 to 10.
Is
Yeah.
that on the Winslow side?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was my understanding the last time we met that we combined the average of Miles Manor and the average of Winslow to our total average. Because if that reads, then the front can be higher than the back, but it's still a Winslow elevation.
Right. And I think that's where it's like, well, we've got some interpreting to do here in some regards. And I
Yeah.
think all of us are saying, well, maybe if the Winslow side, it's a vast height improvement from what's there, big time. And we see that in your drawings, that
Yeah.
it's way shorter than the yellow house next door. But if that back half, so you got the brick house and you got the back half that, you know, let's just say that we're telling a story and that was added on later.
Yeah.
If it were shorter and closer to that 10%, then that would probably make it feel better because now, yes, you've satisfied Miles
the
Manor
front.
and we've come down and we've worked our way down. I know you're counting on that square footage, but we may have to think about, well, maybe there's some type of dormer or something that is making that space. That's sort of where we came from, wasn't it?
Can I ask how if it's, what would you say the average was, 28 feet?
On Winslow Road, it's about 24 feet, 6
So how
inches.
did the house behind get to be 34 feet?
The house.
The stone house, that's
That's
It's
under construction.
34 feet.
that's what we measured.
I think if you've got something to show the context,
It should be on there. Should be
Yeah,
part of the
there's a
drawings.
diagram.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like I said,
Well, I have
it's
a diagram also showing them side by side.
yeah,
so-
yeah. That's what I'm looking at
Okay.
here. It's closer, right? You're within 10% of that house, but you are a little bit taller. But
Yeah,
you also
you're
have
taller than that.
your grade is taller than theirs
Yes,
too. So it's
and
like,
your grade.
well,
How
there's
how did that house get to be over? You know, that's why I'm confused because it's brand new, pretty much,
yeah,
and it's on the same street that I'm comparing. But I have a
sure.
harder restriction than it had apparently.
I will say, just as a point of clarification, the board doesn't have that information in front of them. They're here just to talk about
Yeah.
your specific property. So
Yeah, and that the diagram is helpful because it sure doesn't look as bad as 10 feet right here, right? So I think those are all good things. Like I said, if that rear portion of the house were a little shorter somehow, whether it's roof pitch change or, you know, you're thinking of it just differently, it might help us step down to that.
Well, I'll say it. Corner lots matter more. That's just a fact. You can look at any,
And I understand that. Yeah.
body, corner lots matter more. And I think the other house heads straight back, and this is much more exposed.
Yeah, but the other house is not a corner lot.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess what we're saying is this has the potential. I mean, there's the diagram. This has the potential to, you're going down Winslow, you're seeing these one-story stone houses. Then you see this new one, which is tall, but it's compact. It goes deep. And then we're confronted with that elevation, which could feel like, oh my goodness. And we've toured Franklin and had some reactions to stuff that this board has approved and had that reaction. And so we're sensitive to the fact that, yes, it's a corner, and it participates in that side view. So I think what you've done here is a much more handsome version than you had.
I agree.
It's broken into much better parts. You're definitely headed in the right direction. We just have to be a little more sensitive to just that one side, and I think you're real close. I mean, you're super close. In this diagram, I think helps you. When I heard 10 feet, 10 feet, I was like, oh, he's way off. I see that, and I go, maybe we're not
Well,
terribly
only, I
far
think,
off.
But
2 foot
the
difference from
problem
that.
is,
Yeah.
this one, in the exposed length of it is how much wider.
Yeah, it's twice as wide as that new house.
Wide.
Yeah.
But I also
So-
only have about 35 feet of width to work with, so whatever we
Do
get rid of.
do you know on the other corner lot of the house on, this block face, do you know how tall the rear of it is?
It should be an image of it.
You talking about on Miles Manor? Mm-hmm. That one with the round window?
There's that rear side. Yeah.
It's the top
No.
right one.
There you go. It's that one.
That
230.
one, yeah. See, the length of it,
It's the same length as mine. And
have you got a side elevation of that house? Because I feel like you're the bookend of that block.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with the round window.
Yeah.
Yeah, come around the corner.
Look at the side.
See, the height of it doesn't seem to me, now, we did not have historic zoning when those were approved.
there's also no second floor on that one, most likely. So
It does what, sir?
no second floor on that house. So.
Well, that's
It's
you know,
3 stories
Well, I
inside.
mean, if you
yeah.
looking at the windows, it's probably not much of a second floor because it's just a round window in the front.
Yeah.
And then,
Couple
It's on the
back.
front, right.
so more there, but
And then that's the
You're not
full
looking at
3 stories on the rear. And I don't know I don't know the height of that.
That's
I
what
have
it said.
the height
But
on there.
it
It's
is
33 feet.
33 feet.
33.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, to me, about
Where's that 33 measure?
If I
In the
take-
back?
where are you measuring it from the
It's
back?
driveway
From the
to
side?
to the-
What is it from the side? Do you know?
I don't know. But
You
from the
don't know.
rear here, it's 33 feet from that ridge to the,
And what you're proposing is 36.8.
Mm-hmm.
but 3 feet just gets rid of the second floor. I mean, pretty much, so.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the length is in comparison, but that would help me visualize it if I knew the length of the one on the
We're the
corner.
same length. We're not very different on our length.
Not very different lengths,
we're-
okay. And then the elevation, or the height from the.
You can tell from the front, we're very
side.
similar on our.
It's
there's a
similar in the
diagram.
front, but,
So that red
But-
is where we are.
right, I think you've licked the front, I will say,
So
as
that
far as,
dictates the height of my back.
Yeah.
So,
as far as the height
I
and
feel like if we
massing.
lower the rear piece,
Yeah,
are we going to be your soffit's stone align? That doesn't seem to match, then am I going to bring the whole house down?
well, just an element of the house down, to me.
Well, that's the whole center, the connector piece and the addition, most likely to make it read as we want it to read. And it's bringing it down 3 feet. So that connector piece becomes pretty difficult to get a stair, like,
Yeah, and I'm not sure 3 feet's the number. I mean, that's what gets you to
well,
the opposite end.
The opposite end.
Yeah,
And
but I
I'm
don't-
just judging by, if the lengths are the same, if it is a companion piece
sure.
to other houses around it, and it doesn't just go to you. And
Yeah.
I think our goal is to have this knit in to that neighborhood without your eye just rushing to it and saying what happened. You know, our goal is to keep the character, the scale, and massing of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Is it topographically the same on the whole block? Because it seems like it's going down on this lot.
Yes, and that's going to give less forgiveness because of
Right.
the exposure.
Right.
I mean, all of them have a walkout basement, drive out basement.
Yes.
So they all dip, but I think this
It's more
lot's
pronounced
more
here.
pronounced.
Yeah,
Or I think it just happens faster up at the front. So there's just more house out of the ground. And what you've shown will be a vast improvement in height from that house, which is
That house.
quite, I mean, it's probably taller than the one across the street there, the mansion. It's a whopper.
Now go back, let's go back to the side elevation once more.
I'm looking at these 3D on your second page, and even the right side elevation that doesn't have the courtyard wall just seems so simpler and smaller scale than the other side, and then you realize they're the exact same size. But that just seems so much more massive
Oh.
than the other one, but it's the same thing. It's just all the walls and stuff are contributing to that. So I'm trying to,
but the house on the other end has a
yeah,
courtyard.
it has the walls, just, yeah, that's what I was looking at, yeah. But like that doesn't seem overwhelming in the same way that maybe that side does.
It doesn't. Now, why is that?
It's just, there's more going on, there's more to
There's
look
more
at.
going on.
Big chimney, all that.
Yeah, it matches what the other, I think there's a
Plus it's
25 foot easement off the property line for
I
the
think
alley.
that's what's confusing too,
Yeah.
is looking at this and thinking
Oh,
that
both-
it's just ending right at the alley,
Yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think you're super far off. I think if you can think of a way to maybe rearrange your upstairs in a way that pulls that back roof line down just a little bit, helps us get down to that
Are
other
there
house
any
scale.
concerns? I mean, pulling the roof line down is, creating some rafter bearing issues on where the first floor kitchen is. But any concerns if I pulled that down, that it's not aligning with,
Well, it may not be that. I mean, it may be that back gable piece needs to be a smaller width. And then you can change the bridge connector's pitch. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, it's
In
also
your-
tough for a garage entry because things
Yeah.
aren't lining up to be where
Yeah,
the
it's-
garage
that's-
depth is, so.
But there's probably ways to do it. That's the task. I mean, like I said, I don't think you're too terribly far off. In my book, this is vast improvement to what you've showed before.
I agree.
So I think it's a handsome house. You just got to make sure that the biggest part of this house is facing the smallest part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it has just the risk of kind of being the neighborhood bully in that regard. So we just want to make sure that when it's done, that it fits nicely in the neighborhood, and I have no doubt it's going to be a fine house. I mean, it's
So to
it's
get my
nice.
understanding on the heights for Winslow, it's not a combo. It's not averaging the front and averaging that, because I'm trying to figure out what height am I
Yeah.
restricted to, right?
I don't know the
Sounds
answer
like
to
it
that.
is. I'm not restricted to anything
refer to
on that side.
Well,
It's just what
it's-
looks good.
Yeah, and
So
the
it's not
guidelines
hard
don't
designed to.
the guidelines don't spell that out exactly on your averages, right?
It should be the average of the block face. So if you're looking at the side on Winslow Road, that's the block face that
Face
the
of
height would
that.
be. It won't be a combination of Miles Manor and Winslow Road. It should
So-
just be individual heights.
But the front of the house has to be lower then, because that's still the block face.
Well,
The front-
in your case, you've got two block faces.
I know, but the front, if you look at the left elevation, this is my
So the front
my confusion.
gable of the left
right
elevation.
side is the front face, so that has to match the left side, which she's saying, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's not. I get what you're saying. You
I do
can't-
too, but
you
it
can't
makes-
average both.
Together.
Yeah, but we can't say, well, or we could say you have to use the lower of the averages.
Well-
but that's what he's saying. There's the guidelines don't spell out exactly what happens on a corner lot. Do you average both directions? That's what he basically did. And then at the same time, it's like, well, if we want the lower, well, then people are giving up a lot on their front of their house, right? So it's
Like the lower
not that
can't be
cut and
done in
dry.
front,
I-
right?
Yeah.
Because it'll be, can't access the house.
Well,
Yeah.
I think personally that common sense tells you that the front of the house meets the block face of the ones on Miles Manor, and you've done that. And then the block face of the second front we have, because this is a corner lot, has got to be sympathetic to those houses. And it's, I think what you keep hearing is if that back could come down some to accommodate that, if there's some elements to break it up, but the common sense tells you the side of the house is what you are going to see from Winslow.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
And-
I feel good about the front, that
I do
front
too.
gable side facing. If it stayed the height it is, it will not be within the guidelines for the side. But I would feel okay about saying, I support that because it matches that side, but I do want to see it step down a little bit as we get back so that it transitions from that, what would be out of guidelines, to something that's closer to being in the guidelines.
The side elevation of the house, this house, is just, in my mind, and maybe I'm not seeing it right, is just a lot wider than anything else. So to make allowances for it being that long would be, and you have broken it up more, breaking it up.
I broke it up, but the concern last time was the rear was too tall and turned the gable.
Right.
Turning the gable has now made the side too tall. So, it's,
Bring the gable down.
and now it's just lower the roof line and not have a second floor back there. Because the height was created, the feel of that was created by turning the gable
Yeah.
to that side.
The
And it
two,
does help. I think layering and breaking it does help. But
Yeah.
it feels taller now because I have a taller feeling element on that side. But that was changed because it felt tall in the rear.
Yeah, and it's it's not that's your job to figure out
Yeah.
how to fit it all. Our job is to make sure that it doesn't overwhelm the neighborhood, and right now that part does. That's it. So I don't know if you got to give something up or redesign it differently, but right now it's not where it needs to be.
But it's okay. It's just that it feels too tall to the house.
It measures. It doesn't feel. It is too tall
Too tall.
on that side.
on that
But
side.
it, okay.
We're willing to concede that
Yeah.
front part, the brick part, I think what I'm hearing is everybody's like, if that's taller than that block face on Winslow, we might be okay with that if the rest of the house came down.
Because
yeah.
we're looking at the massing, and it's bigger this way, it's bigger this way. And the two examples I think I mentioned these corner lots that we worked very hard on.
But those were, I went by and those are two very different lots on size wise and like, one story and I get it, but
They're-
very different kind of scenarios to work with, so.
Right.
They want
And-
alley fed garages.
And there weren't three-story houses in the historic fabric of the neighborhood. So that's another situation in this neighborhood.
I have another comment. I'm going to shoot on to another thing that I've noticed. When you're looking at that sheet, that G001, and I'm looking at the two bottom 3D renderings, when I look at the base, well, the garage, the lower level, the window rhythm on the one on the left just is not working really well with the living windows above, the other upper levels. So maybe consider replacement of those. On the 3D rendering to the right of that, those windows in the brick have a nice rhythm that matches with that whole elevation. And the one on the left is not making the mark with that, so they're kind of disconnected when you turn the corner on that. So look at the placement of those windows.
The one in
The
the rear
single ones.
windows compared, the rear windows above the garage or the?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, these right.
side.
Well, I'm moving my mouse on it, but it's the ones, yes, thank you. Those right there.
Like, kind of like on the bottom floor, you think it should align.
Wherever it just needs better placement.
All right.
If
Okay.
you look at the other elevation of those, they feel better with the upper windows.
Okay.
It just seems a bit scattered. So just consider replacing those. I know it's affected by your floor plan, but, and one window was in a mechanical room.
Yeah. Mm.
I just ask you to consider relocating,
Right.
shifting those around.
Will do. Thank you.
I see that. I mean, that side isn't going to have real high visibility, but
No,
I
but
see
as a
where-
mass-
just for the overall integrity, I see that.
Yeah, if it's new construction.
And I really like the front center entrance and all that. And I lived in an arts and craft house for a long time, and I had transoms. So they can be in an arts and crafts house.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, is there anything else that staff would like to say?
No.
I think the other thing that you heard was just making sure that the codes, basic codes.
Yeah, I think staff would stress the importance of getting the plot
Yeah, it's getting.
consolidated
it's
so
being
that
done now.
you can make sure that
I
you
think
have
the-
everything correct.
I'm guessing if they're forcing us to do the side or the setback on that side, we're going to get a variance because it's not a buildable lot if we use the averages of Winslow with this lot, so.
And we just want to make sure that you don't go through this process and then those setbacks or something different than what's been calculated. Then you have to come and redo this all again. So
Survey's
Yeah.
been done, we're just waiting on it, so.
fantastic.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Mark. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And then we have two announcements before
Okay.
we all adjourn. So Monday, September 30th, we have a site visit at Creekside, and it's starting at 3 o'clock. And then following that, we're going to have a brief little break, starting whenever the site visit ends. If the commission will come back here, we're going to set up so there'll be some light refreshments. And then at 5 o'clock, we're going to have our rescheduled Historic Zoning Commission meeting. And so the agenda will be reposted, and we have one item that was originally supposed to be on that one, but it's going to be added. But you'll be getting that link sent to y'all hopefully the end of this week.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right. We're done?
Okay. Do Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Second by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
We're adjourned.